Your Excellency. We're very honored to have you here. And I would like to give the microphone to the chairman of the Panasim of the Portuguese Israeli community of Amsterdam, Mr. Jacques Senior Coronel.
Your Excellency, Mr. Shimon Peres, President of the State of Israel, Chacham Toledano, Chief Rabbi Jacobs, Rabbanim, distinguished members of the President's delegation, Your Excellency Ambassador Chaim Divon and Mrs. Linda Divon, Mrs. Caroline Geels, Deputy Mayor of the City of Amsterdam, Excellencies, parliamentarians, distinguished guests, friends. This visit from the most distinguished and wisest president in the world and recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize is a memorable special event not only for the Jewish community of the Netherlands. In this Synagoge, our illustrious Portugese Synagoge that we have cherished for centuries, gravity and decorum were meant to instill a sense of royal dignity. Mr. President, Shimon Peres, Shimon Persky, doesn't sound Portuguese. Nonetheless, you rise to the task of representing your nation with unsurpassed, as we Portuguese say, gravidade, gravity and royal dignity. In our centuries-old library at Sreim, you just saw the petition that the Board of Panasim intended to present in 1660 to the Sephardic rabbi and Kabbalist Sabtai Tzvi, who claimed to be the long-awaited Messiah. Many hoped to follow him to Jerusalem to rebuild the temple. In 1666, however, Sabtai Tzvi was forced by the Ottoman Sultan to convert to Islam. His conversion devastated his followers, and the Portuguese Jews of Amsterdam went on to build their own temple. This magnificent building reminds everybody, here we are and here we will stay. How has this unique monument withstood the test of time with such glory? It relates an inspiring story about religion, culture, history, and integration. Our unique Synagoge is filled with treasures of a cultural and religious minority gathered throughout the ages. The building symbolizes tradition, spiritual wealth, and the strength to survive even under intensely difficult circumstances. Together with the Jewish Museum and the Hollandsche Schouwburg, we have improved access to our complex and now welcome over 200,000 visitors a year. Upon completing the restoration and rearrangement, this complex reopened in the presence of Her Majesty Queen Beatrix in December 2011. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, ties are very close between Israel and the Netherlands. 10,000 Dutch people have settled in Israel, as many Israelis have found homes in the Netherlands. Dutch Jews and non-Jews are among the top 5 nationalities involved in the Kerenai Shot campaign. Trade is thriving between our countries, totaling approximately 2 billion euros. Mr. President, the turnout this evening reveals the solidarity of the Dutch community with Israel. We are grateful and honored that you have taken the time to share your thoughts with us. Thank you.
May I now invite His Excellency, the Ambassador of Israel, Chaim Divon.
אדוני הנשיא, כבוד הנשיא, ברוך הבא. Mr. President, Excellencies, כבוד הרבנים, mayors, members of parliament, community leaders, thank you so much for joining us today. We couldn't think of a better place, better venue to mark Israel's 65th anniversary in this very special Echal, very special sanctuary, which is not just a Jewish milestone, I think it became universal milestone, inspiring all of us. What a place. But I think the fact that this hall have seen it all. This hall seen mayors, rabbis, members of parliaments, prime ministers, kings, queens, but they didn't see someone that is a member of one of the founders of the State of Israel, that was a minister, a prime minister, a Nobel Peace Prize recipient, and the President of the State of Israel. What a pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. Shimon Peres, the President of the State of Israel. Esther Voet, the newly appointed director of CIDI, will be the moderator this evening. The floor is yours.
The floor is yours. We are so happy that you are here. We are really very happy. And while the talking was going on, I saw you looking. What were your thoughts?
I'm profoundly moved to be in this unique synagogue. I think it's the only place which is still being illuminated by candles, not by electricity. Candle is symbolizing Jewish life. You know, the first order that the Lord gave us in the book of Genesis was make light. And I think the Jews selected a candle or a menorah to demonstrate that a single tiny piece of light can overcome the darkness of our lives, of our world. Just one candle can break darkness. I just visited the Anna Frank Museum. And I thought, one young, lonely girl, herself, with an unbelievable piece of light, candle, overcame the terrible darkness all over the places. And she still exists as a light unto nations, as a light for all of us. to remember where we came from, to remember what we have faced through, and to be warned and told never to give up. Never again darkness, never again surrender. Always we shall live as a people that looks for light. Thank you.
Anne Frank is an icon. You are Israeli history. You've lived through it all. You were there with David Ben-Gurion. You were there you were the one who was ordered to get the weapons in 47 in order for the state to survive. You were all these things that were just mentioned, and I'm not going to repeat them again. Now you are a president of a state that is relatively quiet, an eye of a storm, in an incredible world within turmoil. They call it the Arab Spring, and I know people don't like doing the Vivaldi thing with the Arab Spring, but what are your thoughts on the developments in your bad neighborhood?
Of all the important titles that a Jewish person can have, the one I prefer is Avdecha Yaakov, your servant Jacob. I think what we can do is to serve, not to rule. I have had the unforgettable privilege to serve my people. And in a very trying time, when all the odds were against us, I still remember the early days before the state of Israel was founded. Nothing was on our side. The land of Israel was abandoned. The territory was small. The earth was refusing. In the small, tiny little of Israel, we have had swamps in the north and deserts in the south. Neither did we have water. We have two lakes, as you know, one dead, the other dying. We have one river, the Jordan River, which is rich in fame but poor in water. So we have had no land, no water. But we faced animosity. Before the state was born, we went to war. We were attacked. And in 65 years, we were attacked 7 times, outgunned, outnumbered. Nothing, and we didn't have any natural resources. What do we have? A moral heritage and a trust in God and man. We thought the greatest treasure in life is the human being. And Israel became an example where people enriched the land rather than the land enriched the people. For me, it's a miracle. When we started, we were 650,000 Jewish people facing 40 million Arabs. And not many people gave us a chance. Yet today, we are 8 million. We are one of the best economy. We have an unusual agriculture. where high-tech is replacing land and water. We have pioneers and fighters and scientists, and in spite of all the wars, we are and we shall be a people in search of peace. When I come here, I see this unbelievable synagogue. Generations has passed since the synagogue was built. And again, we were put to test. So if you ask me what is my recollection, is to serve these small people in number, these great people in spirit. And I feel here among you at family. You are my sisters, my brothers, in history, in suffering, in hoping, and keeping true to the sublime call of humanity to be humane.
During doing some research, we came up on a visionary speech of you that you did in 1988 in front of the World Journalists Association. And ladies and gentlemen, we will publish that speech that you gave tomorrow on the CIDI site because it's almost prophetic, really. We will republish that interview. And in that speech, you say, the archives in the Middle East are filled with peace initiatives. 3 or 4 of these persons even got the Nobel Prize. Well, we know one of them. But no matter the amount of prizes and awards, we did not get peace. Okay. The question is, we did not get peace. We did all the we've won Nobel Prizes, but we did not get peace yet. And my question is, right now there is a new initiative going on by the Secretary of State, Mr. Kerry. What do you think the chances are? Is there any hope for that initiative?
I think it's more than a chance. It's an immediate call and need. We started to negotiate with the Palestinians 20 years ago. It took time, unfortunately, but we have the start. Furthermore, we know what should be the ultimate conclusion, agreed by us, by the Palestinians, by the Americans, by the Europeans, actually all countries, and that is to have a two-state solution. A Jewish state by the name of Israel, an Arab state by the name of Palestine, living as neighbors in peace, in cooperation. I think it is achievable. I think our greatest problem is really the skepticism and doubt. At my age, I got the permission to be a believer and to be an optimist. I do believe it can be achieved. I do believe it is achievable, not in too long a period of time. I think our government and our Prime Minister took a decision to try and do it. I know the other side, the leaders of the Palestinians, including their president, Abu Mazen, as we call him, Abbas, with whom I have signed the agreement in Washington. I believe he too is convinced that not only us, but they, the Arabs, don't have a better alternative but to make peace. And now, you know, all of a sudden the world again sees the darkness of war and hostility. Maybe they act slowly, maybe they do gradually, but one of our neighbors, Assad, a killer of his own children, was forced to give away the chemical arsenal. And I think now Iran is on the agenda. All of us wish that Iran will stop building the nuclear weapons and the nuclear missiles. All of us agree that let's try and achieve it, if it is possible, by a diplomatic route. But if diplomacy will not function, even a person like President Obama, who is really basically a man of peace, says, dear friends, if you won't listen to the call of humanity, we shall use all means and other means. I believe the sanctions that were taken played already a role. I do not believe that Rouhani, the president of Iran, would make his speeches without facing the cost of sanctions. Maybe the sanctions will be sufficient to really bring an end to this danger. But I think we have to keep our determination not to allow another threat to humanity to take place after everything that we have experienced in the last century. I do believe it is possible. I do believe it's needed. And I do believe it is achievable.
Meanwhile, in Europe, we have some battles to fight too, where in the 60s and 70s, a lot of people were happy with the state of Israel, and were even here in the Netherlands, they had stickers on their cars saying, "We stand behind Israel." The mood has changed. We now have to deal with for example, BDS movements. And we also have people who are saying that Israel is an apartheid state. Now, what would you like to tell those people?
Well, let me answer it without any emotions. I know they say people is this and Israel is this and Israel is that. Look at the facts. We were attacked, as I said, 7 times. We won 7 wars. Once the 2 of the countries that attacked us, namely Egypt and Rome, agreed to make peace, we returned all the land, all the water. Who did it? But us. Then we started to negotiate with the Palestinians. And a priori we said we are ready to participate in a solution that will enable them to build a state of their own. further. We tried to implement it gradually. You know, the Gaza Strip was under Israeli control. We have had there 22 settlements and 8,000 settlers. Israel unilaterally decided to leave Gaza. We dismantled the settlements. We called back the settlers home. It was a very difficult task. Naturally, the Jewish people who lived in Gaza planted trees, built homes. It was for them a tragedy to leave. But they left. The government has had to mobilize 75,000 policemen to make them leave. It cost us $2 or $3 billion. Once we left Gaza, and it became free, nobody can say anymore it's under Israeli occupation. The Palestinians who live there started to fire missiles against us. So who is the man that can say that we are apartheid? Where do you have it in history? Why should I be defensive? I know in our heart, I know by our heritage, that we were not born to govern any other people by force. On the contrary, Moses was the first democrat. He said that every human being was born in the image of the Lord, and nobody is iberales, nobody is superior. But while peace is our target, our obligation is to keep alive. My dear friends, would Israel lose one war, I wouldn't be sitting here. So in spite of all the wars, our main priority today is peace. We would like to see the Arabs living in peace, independently, entering modern age, divorcing the shortages of food and freedom. We didn't change our mind. So I can say briefly that there is some anti-Semites, but anti-Semitism is a non-Jewish sickness, not a Jewish one.
How is it, we see in your program here, it's amazing these few days. Why do you do it? Why don't you enjoy the children and the grandchildren and say, you know, I've paid my dues? What keeps you ticking?
Well, I think as far as my children, grandchildren, and they have already grandchildren, 3 of them. And I think I need them more than they need me. I think they're growing in a land of freedom, in a way, as happy youngsters. You know, when I'm asking myself, who is a Jew? My answer is, a Jew is a person that keeps his children Jewish. So, I mean, I don't see, I know life is difficult, but not unmeaningful. Every person is small than his own ego, and every person can be great as the cause he serves. I have the privilege to serve the greatest cause in our life. And my luck was to be raised and educated by probably the greatest Jew in modern history, Ben-Gurion. He was really a genius, a man with an unbelievable memory, a man that managed 8 or 9 languages, that never stopped reading, acting, deciding. But when I think about him for myself, and I'm asking myself, what was his greatest quality? My answer is that in spite of whatever he was, in spite of whatever he faced, in spite of whatever he did, he remained something which is very important. An innocent man, a believer, a man without cynicism, without skepticism. Not that he didn't have doubts, but he wasn't skeptic. And what he taught us, our generation, is that the highest wisdom of a person is to be honest. Nothing is wiser than to be a person that has and respects a moral code. So we educated a generation of many youngsters in Israel. I had the luck to work with him for 20 years. And I think he was probably the greatest statesman in Jewish history, because the Jewish people always had great prophets, great judges, great priests. I'm not sure. We have had great statesmen, and maybe we pay the price for it. He was all those things, but also a statesman who knew the need of power and who knew the limits of power, who knew that power comes second, never first. First is the respect of human life. First is to choose the moral call and prefer it upon all other attractions in life. You know, to have a great educator is a privilege, but then it's not enough to be taught. You have to implement it and serve the people. I apologize for my age, but I don't have a choice.
There is this saying of you that says, you know, we all die the same way. It's about how you live. And you can either live a pessimist or you can live an optimist. I decided for the last. Being an optimist, could you tell me something of the vision for the future?
Well, I can give you a simple answer and say that pessimists, like optimists, are passing away the same way. The difference is they live differently. So why should you spend your life as a pessimist when you can spend your life as an optimist? And from my experience, you know what is my preference. Be optimistic, believe, don't lose your heart, don't give up something which is right. And I don't know, people are a little bit pampering themselves. They go to vacation, they're tired. I don't know why. Because to work, to act, to believe is the best vacation in life. Or shall I say, the best vocation of life. So my recommendation is, be optimistic, believe, and at least your life will be more meaningful and happier.
We are all amongst friends here, and our Dutch Jewish community is so small. We always say we just filled the arena, which is the stadium of Ajax. That's how small we are. The stadium of Ajax, it's a soccer, a football club.
Sorry. Well, you took me to the domain of sports, which I'm not sure I'm a great expert on it.
I get it. Okay, anyway, we are with only a few thousand Jews left in the Netherlands. And the Jewish life here in the Netherlands is under pressure. And it's not only under pressure from the outside, it's also under pressure from the inside, because there's not a lot of unity amongst the people of the Jewish community here in the Netherlands. Discussions are one thing, fights are a second. What is your message to the Dutch Jewish community?
Well, I'm not sure that union is a typical character of the Jewish people. It began with Ashkenazi and Sephardi. You know, some of my friends are asking me, what is the greatest contribution of the Jewish people to the rest of the world? And my answer is dissatisfaction. A good Jew cannot be satisfied. It's not for us. When you are dissatisfied, you're creating, you're struggling, you're fighting. We are united by our gospel. We are divided by our character. Not bad. Let's go on. What's wrong? As long as they don't use arms or violence. It's a debate, as we say, L'Shem Shamayim, namely for heaven sake. Not bad. I wish we would be more united. But I look at our leaders and rabbis. They're so convinced, my God. And you know, after the destruction of the second temple, the Jewish leaders thought, how can we keep Jewish people Jewish? Because it's not true that the Jews were not farmers, were not workers. On the contrary, they were good ones. But they stopped being Jewish. They became too much businesslike. So they say, what will keep us are books and learning. And after the second temple, they started to publish the Mishnah and the Talmud. The Mishnah is 6 volumes. If you read it, it's an ongoing debate. I mean, it's really seeing learned people, very wise, arguing on every possible subject. It's a great book. And I think we should never stop searching for new meanings, for new introductions. Not bad. I think you have to be engaged all your life in your own way to make your living meaningful, contributing. So again, I would like that we should be more united, but I cannot recall any chapter in our history when we were really united. The only thing that really united us were our books, not our policies. So much so that even when we were exiled from our land, the book kept us together. We are the only people on earth that after we were destroyed 3 times, after we were exiled from our land, we returned to our land, to our language, to our history. We do not have brothers to our religion. We do not have sisters to the Hebrew language. We do not have neighbors to our history. And yet, we are the only country in the Middle East where our children are speaking their original language. The only country where the children are teaching their mothers the mother tongue, and they speak in the language of prophets. So there are more than just one facet of our life. We paid heavily. My God, what we lost here. What remained out of 140,000 Jewish people. We cannot forget it. But we have the capacity to understand that the Netherlands that went through the Nazi period with so many victims from our side is today a new Netherlands. And as I say, even if your fathers ate sour grapes, the teeth of their children should not be blamed. We can see a new Netherlands in love of the Bible. I shall never forget that once walking in the old city, I saw a tourist who came from Netherlands, and he had a guidebook in his hand to see how to move around. The guidebook wasn't a Michelin, it was the Bible. It was held by the original Bible. So we loved the Dutch people, so much so that we started to raise tulips, and we became a competitor of Holland. It's a great combination to learn the Bible and love flowers.
You are here also because Israel exists for 65 years this year. It's the 65th anniversary of the State of Israel, a miracle. Could you tell a little bit more about the contribution that Israel is making to the world?
Well, it's not for me to judge because it was judged by non-Jewish people. If you'll take, for example, the number of Nobel Prize laureates, the Jewish people are 0.1% of humanity. Among the Nobel laureates, we are 25%. That's a non-Jewish measurement that may really tell the contribution of Jewish people. We were, from time to time, controversial. And there's one encyclopedia described the Jewish people as a people that did not let the world fall asleep. We didn't let others to fall asleep, we couldn't fall asleep. We are allowed to the heights of the meaning, what is a human being, what makes him a meaningful human being. There are things that you cannot measure, but you feel in the heart. They are a measure. And there are so many indications even today that, for example, in the domain of science, a small country like Israel made for herself a great name. It's not a machinery that made Israel so great in science. It's a human talent, a human heritage, a human dedication for what we call in Hebrew, tikkun olam, to better the world. We don't live to be satisfied. We live to create satisfaction for all people.
Moral question. What do you see looking to all those years as your biggest achievement? And what do you see as your biggest failure?
I don't think I have personal achievements. I think my greatest achievement was my opportunity to serve the people. You know, many people ask me, how would I like to be remembered? And my sincere answer is, if somebody will remember that I saved the life of one child, that will be the greatest thing. I would accredit it myself.
We do have some ambassadors here this afternoon of several nations. I don't know exactly which ones, but let's say there would be ambassadors here of your neighboring countries. What would you like to tell them? Would you like to tell them? Well, on the subject maybe of peace.
Well, what I have to tell you is remember, respect your fathers and parents, but invest whatever you have in your children. The greatest thing we possess are our children. They live in a different world. You know, it's always nice to be young. But nowadays, it's very expensive to be young. Very difficult. Because a young boy or young girl have to compete with all boys and all girls all over the world. They must be more knowledgeable, more competitive. They live maybe in a better house, but it costs more. They may have better food, it's more expensive. They have to keep their body, their dress, their brain, their mind. And occasionally they are telling us, all the time you asked us to respect the past. Well, we are not sure that you left us such a wonderful world. So, thank you for what you did. Thank you that you brought us alive. But now, let us build a better world, a different world. And if I have to make in a short description what is in my judgment, a better world for our children, I would say 3 things. To remain true to our moral heritage. We have one document, all told 172 letters, the 10 Commandments. It's 3,500 years old. Nobody felt the necessity to change the world. Furthermore, it became the foundation of civilization. Let's keep this document as our guide. On the other hand, never be late to see the future and to be, and let our children be, not only up to date, but really up tomorrow, so they can understand the future, take advantage of it. And the third point, no matter how wars or animosities are maybe threatening us, we shall always be a people of peace. We shall always remember that the essence of the Torah is Ve'ahavta et reacha kamocha. And you shall love the other or your friend as yourself. Those are, in my judgment, the 3 foundations of our life. They are more important than anything else. So I think this is the vision that should guide us in the future.
Before we stand up for the 2 national anthems, the Wilhelmus and the Hatikva, I would like to thank you, and we would all like to thank you from a very deep place within our hearts. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. And we ask the people to remain seated until the President has left the building.